This Week in Startups is brought to you by Design Crowd. Best custom graphic, logo, and web designs for your business. Get $100 off your design project at designcrowd.com/twist or enter promo code TWIST. And Squarespace. Start building your website today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code TWIST at checkout to get 10% off. Our iTunes review of the week is from Green Panther 12. This Week in Startups is quite simply the most informative, entertaining podcast that offers remarkable insights in startups and the world at large.
And let's bring up Jason Lemkin.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. Just quickly, I'll tell you a little bit more about me if you don't, but how many folks in the room are between 1 and 10 million in revenue or getting close to $1 million? So, okay, enough this will be relevant. It's good. So I run a $70 million venture fund and a weird web community called SaaStr that gets about 3 million views a month on how to scale recurring revenue businesses, SaaS businesses. It's a little bit more than 4 years old as a community. And I've personally written over 3,000 pieces of content since then. And since we're here at scale, I decided it would be great to take a break and distill 3,000 pieces of content into 4.5 points. 4.5 points that matter for getting from 1 to 10 million in revenue. And if any of you have read any of this content or been to, some of this will be familiar, but I've never synthesized it this way. So I wanted to do it for this event. And also, interestingly, I've invested in 23 companies. I won't walk you through all of them. Some of them are, halfway to 100 million in revenue. Some are earlier. But I've got about 6 that are all in this 5 to 6 million ARR range right now. And it's funny because they're all hitting the exact same set of issues. And while I've written about it, and I had all these same issues myself as a founder, it's been interesting to watch all of them hit the same set of issues. So I thought between me, 3,000 pieces of content, 6 companies I've invested in that are sort of pre-unicorns, what are the things that we all screw up at this phase? And so I wanted to distill it. I'll get to the next one. Step back for a minute. 1 million is this interesting point. 1 million sometimes doesn't feel any different than $999,999 in revenue, but it really is the impossible. You've actually gotten 100, 50, 80, 200 customers to actually buy another boring-ass web product, which absolutely nobody needs. And 1 million is not enough. Depending on where your team is, it's barely enough to pay the rent and for the handful of folks you have. But you're past beer money, and it's actually going to happen. And the Zen learning of SaaStr and everything I've done is if you get to 1 million and you're growing more than 0% a month, which you almost certainly are in SaaS because you convinced customers to buy your product, you will get to 10. And your real job, you only have one job after 1 million. Get to 10 as efficiently as possible. If it takes you 5 years, you'll quit. You will quit. You will die. You'll have to bring in another CEO. You'll pass out. If you can get there in 2 years, you'll never stop. The real hack is to get there in less than 4 years. And the rocket ships, the Slacks of the world get there in 5 quarters or less. However long it takes, I want to help you get there 20% faster through 3.5 points. So that's my goal. And you can see, this is way back me as founding my last company, EchoSign. I did this little chart at every company meeting once I figured this out. I didn't know this at 1 million, but it started to dawn on me at 2 to 3 million that we will get to 10. And I would do this goofy slider every single time we had a company meeting, like how we were getting there from 1 to 10. And it took me a little longer than it will take you. This was old days in SaaS. I guess it took me 2.5 years to do it. I want you to do it faster, but it always happens. It always happens. So, number one mistake people make, if you remember nothing from this, just remember this. No matter how well you're feeling at 1 million or 2 million in ARR, probably when you raise your first real venture round, people are patting you on your back. You can get anyone at TechCrunch to return your email. Things are starting to feel good. You're going to hit a wall at 4 to 5 million in ARR almost with precise certainty. And the reason you're going to hit it is because you don't have all the VPs in place. And I know you think you're always recruiting and you're always doing this, but the reality is as founders, for quite a while we recruit sequentially. We jump on the landmine. I need a VP of sales. We figure out I need a VP of sales. And then we figure out we forgot to hire a VP customer success. And then we figure out we're way too late for marketing. And we put all our energy into this, and we're convinced if we can only meet that great candidate, of course they'll join me. I'm so charismatic. I'm such a closer. And maybe that works for a long time, but it totally stalls out when you have 50 people. There's too many things going on. And it just doesn't work anymore. And I've seen this again and again and again. And typically what happens is you hire a first VP of sales, it doesn't work out 70% of the time. Hopefully anything we've written or published will help you mitigate that risk. And then you're scrambling again. You're scrambling at 2 million, 3 million, 4 million. And if you don't have that VP of sales in place, a real one that can scale at 4 million, it becomes impossible. Because think about if you want to go from, say, 4 to 10 in the next year and a half, and your average rep is going to attain, say, 400K in quota. How many reps do you need to hire just to get there? You may need to hire 20 sales reps just to hit that plan like next week. You cannot do it as a founder. If you do not have a real VP of sales that can recruit and hire a team, you will plateau at 4 to 5 million in ARR. I see it again and again. I see companies I've invested in that are rocket ships, that are growing double digits per month reliably at 500,000, 1 million, 2 million ARR. I mean, they're hitting 2 or 3 million ARR, growing more than 10% a month. I mean, math major, help me do the compounding math. That's pretty badass, right? And then all of a sudden, they don't make this VP, the right VP of sales hire, and boom, 4%, 5% a month, again and again and again. So you kind of know that, but again, it's not enough. And then what happens, even if you make that hire, you know what happens? How do you feed that team? And folks don't hire a VP of marketing early enough. I say you can hire it at 20K a month in MRR. $20,000 a month in revenue, because at that point, he or she should be accretive. They should be able to generate enough demand for new customers to pay their fully burdened salary. But worst case, if you don't do that, or you hire some junior growth hacker, or you go cheaper to save money, and you screwed all that up, and you still, because you're a great founder, you got yourself to 1 or 2 million. If you don't hire a real VP of marketing that can have a real lead commit, deliver you revenue, you'll stall out because you won't have enough help for sales. I see this again and again. Well, I've got a demand gen marketer, a kid that I hired with 2 years of experience. Great, doesn't work at 4 to 5. Or the biggest error I see is I hire a fancy VP of marketing with a beautiful LinkedIn, and he or she has never generated leads all the time. The vast majority of folks with marketing in their title at big tech companies, including SaaS, do corporate marketing. They do this stuff. They make your brand look pretty. They make this hall look great. They make the fonts look nice. They do collateral. They do things that are important. I'm being a little facetious. But 90% of these people do not know how to generate leads. It's bad enough when you hire someone like this at 1 to 2 million, but you know what happens at 4 to 5 million? They realize they don't know what they're doing, and they hire someone off LinkedIn that says demand gen on their resume, usually with 18 months of experience, and at their last job, generated no leads, okay? You will hit a wall. So at 4 to 5 million in revenue, forget about whatever this person's title. If you don't have a VP of demand gen, you will not generate enough leads, and you will not help the sales team enough to scale. Happens 97 times out of 100. Third one, what happens? 4 to 5 million, usually you've been in this for a while. You're in your third year, at least your second, and that's when what I call second order revenue starts to work. This word of mouth starts to happen. People start referring you to other prospects. It starts to come in. Your customers start renewing, right? Renewals are where cash reigns on SaaS companies, right? It's so expensive to acquire a company, but you do it right, the second year that prepaid cash comes in, your company starts minting cash around 4 to 5 million in revenue if you do it right. And if you really do it right, they buy more from you. If they really do it right, when you go for that second or third year renewal and they love you, and your NPS is high, that 100K contract goes up to 120 and 140. But if you haven't hired a VP of customer success then, it just doesn't happen. Those upgrades don't happen. You do okay, the churn doesn't happen immediately, but think about that math. If you're at 4 million in revenue and you don't have a real head of customer success, and you're sacrificing 20% of that growth, that's 800K in the next year, and then it just compounds. And the types of folks you can have beforehand, folks that just love software, love your product, people you love, that's great until here, but you need a manager here. You need someone that can own a number, and your job is to take a cohort of revenue, say 5 million revenue, and your job next year, Linda, Bill, is to turn that into 6 million. You know what? 90% of the folks in customer 6 cannot do that. They cannot turn 5 million to 6 million. If you don't make this hire, that 5 million will become 5.1 million. That really sucks for next year, but this is recurring revenue. Think about that, how it compounds over time.
Visit designcrowd.com/twist and save up to $100 on your design project. If you don't know, designcrowd.com is a place where it's a marketplace, and you put up what you want to design, and a bunch of designers go compete and build you a great logo, designs for your website, etc. And they've got over 500,000 registered designers from around the world. It works really simple. You post a brief, hey, here is what I'm looking for, and you'll receive 60 to 100 different designs or more. And you then provide feedback, and you get changes, so you can go back and forth, and then you select the best design and approve payment to that designer. And if this all sounds scary, like, oh my God, I've never done it before, don't worry, there's a money-back guarantee, and I did it for my website, calacanis.com, and for $500, we received over 350 designs. I'm not sure you're going to receive 350. I did tweet it, so maybe you'll receive 60 to 100, but it was amazing. We got a ton of great icons and illustrations and portraits and bulldogs. You can go see it if you go do a search over there. And you can help me select the winning design by voting at designcrowd.com/twist. Their other clients include Harvard Business School, the old HBS, Virgin, HTC, Absolute Vodka, Amnesty International, which was my first job out of school, and over 100,000 other small businesses. So here's your call to action, everybody. Go to designcrowd.com/twist and save up to $100 on your design project. Give it a shot. You're going to love it. I guarantee it. Designcrowd.com/twist, and you'll get $100 off. I guarantee it, but I don't have to guarantee it because they guarantee it. It's got a money-back guarantee. Design Crowd, it works. It's awesome. Go ahead and visit at Design Crowd. Oh, go ahead and follow them on Twitter too, at Design Crowd. Okay.
And then the last one, and then I do want to move on. You have to have all three of these positions at 4 to 5 million, or for the mathematical reasons I explained, your growth will decelerate just when it's getting good. And then the last one, first-time founders never hire, and this also becomes a subtle decelerant, is a VP of product. The vast majority of first-time founders, unless they've somehow come out of Salesforce or Twitter or Facebook or somewhere great, they've never worked with a great VP of a product. Even if they've worked with a head of product, they were terrible. They were someone that put up Gantt charts or yelled at engineers, someone that had no idea like how to do magic with a product. They don't know how to do it. And so what tends to happen around 4 to 5 million revenue is your product, if it's SaaS, becomes too complex. Those 10 workflows become 100, become 200. All of a sudden, I have 30 customers that want the product to do A, B, C, and D. And yes, you are the VP of product in the beginning, in the core of the rest of your job, but you cannot keep up. And everything will fall apart. Not that day, not that week, not that release, but it will fall apart in the next year because of this massive complexity that you have built up over the last year. And I know half of you don't believe you need this hire, but the real reason is it's because you've never met a great one. So meet 30, torture yourself, force yourself to do it. Meet 30 for all the positions and hire the best VP of product you can out of 30. I guarantee you will hit a wall on the software side, no matter who your CTO is, VP of engineering, or anything. If someone can't manage the intersection of product, customers, and customer success, that's this person's job. So that's all that matters, is hiring all of these. They all need to be A-plus players and happen at the perfect time in the perfect sequence. Not possible, but what's the key is not to hire sequentially. Force yourself to spend 20% of your time recruiting. Force yourself to do this, 30 interviews per position. Force yourself to, no matter what, do 5 VP interviews a week, at least 5. It's torture, it's horrible. Hire recruiters, get help, don't do it yourself. If you do this all sequentially, you will fail. Okay, I think I said that enough times, right? This is really the only point that matters, this and everything. But here's the second thing that everybody screws up, especially the better the founder, the more they screw this up, which is they want to grow faster. We all want to grow faster. Anyone in this room feel like they're growing too fast in B2B? I guess it could happen in consumer, right? I guess if you're burning $1 million a month at Tumblr, that was scary for a while. It's never, ever happened in SaaS. Everyone wants to grow faster. And so what happens after $1 million or $2 million in revenue? We kind of get it. We have 100 customers. We have 200. It's like, I want to start entering new segments. Don't. Whatever you do, don't, with a big asterisk or dagger. Don't enter a segment or vertical you have no customers in. If you remember nothing else, at this point, it's at 100 is 1,000. Once you have 100 customers, it is statistically significant, and whatever your customers looks like, here was my ratio between small, medium, and large. Whether for you it's small, medium, or large, whether it's the different type of verticals you enter, whether it's deal size. If by customer 100, no one on planet Earth in a certain vertical or at a certain size has bought your product, don't try to force it. This isn't to say if customer number 200 happens to be Google and they come in and they want to pay you $1 million a year, you shouldn't take it. Of course you should. But no more forcing. There's no fat on the system here. You don't have enough people at this stage and there's too much going on. And the way to get from 1 to 100 is not to chase the shiny penny, not to get into healthcare, not to add a freemium level because Slack is so cool, but you have no freemium traction. It's to make incremental improvements to tilt the curve. So I know this sounds silly, but all of you are going to do this. All of you are going to say, well, what if I add a freemium version? What if I add a free trial? What if I do healthcare? What if I do this? All of you will do it. Don't do it. I mean, talk about it, work on it, and you know when to do it? Do it around 8 or 10 million in revenue. You'll get big enough. You'll have 50, 60, 80, 100 people on the team, and then you'll have a spare team. You'll have an extra group of engineers. You can hire a few extra sales reps. You can put a new demand gen marketer on this vertical. You can enter segments that are ROI negative. But until 8 to 10, talk about it, have fun, do not do it. Okay, I think I hit this point. Just do better. Third point I want to hit, because this stresses a lot of folks out. Maybe the most important thing also the third most important thing from getting 1 to 10 or quickly is to drive your NPS and CSAT up. If you don't know what these acronyms mean, that's okay. Google them and fix it today, okay? If you've read my stuff, I used to hate NPS. I've had a complete change. Now that I've worked with about 22 great SaaS companies, all of whom track their NPS from almost customer 5, I've watched how this unfolds over time. And what I've watched is the companies I've worked with that have abnormally high net promoter scores, that their customers quantitatively love them, okay? They've made more mistakes, actually, than the companies that are less beloved, and it's been okay. They've managed to battle through it because their NPS is super high. And some of this is organic. You may be in a category where folks hate the product. You may be in a category where the VP that buys your product loves it, and the end users hate it, like expense management or procurement. Like you're never gonna have like a 70 with your end user in expense management, I don't think, at least not enterprise. But here's the key, don't sweat it. Drive it up. This always works. It always works. First of all, buy any web tool tomorrow and measure NPS. 90% of you don't. 2, figure out how to segment it, at least like in 3 segments. Small customers, medium customers, large customers, whatever you want. And then you've hired this VP of customer success. Make her job in each segment to drive it up. Whether it's 20% next quarter, which is a good place to start, whatever it is, drive it up and magic will happen. Magic will happen. And here's one. This is a company called Rainforest QA, which is SaaS for functional QA I invested in when they were doing about $10,000 a month in January 05. Now we're crossing 8 figures in revenue, so pretty big jump. There's some fun stories in there. Churn was abysmal when I invested. Churn was abysmal because the smallest customers couldn't deploy the software fast enough. Churn was abysmal because because there was no customer success team. This was the worst churn in my portfolio. One of my favorite companies. I mean, the growth is great. October, 0% churn, $0 in churn. You know what the magic was? It was nothing. It's the same freaking product that it was when I invested. I mean, it's better, don't get me wrong. They measured it. They hired a world-class customer success team. Then they hired a head of customer success, and this was their job. This will beget more and more customers. This will beget second-order revenue and renewals. And you can do it. So don't worry if your NPS is 5 or 10. Just drive it up, and magic will happen. I guarantee it. Okay, 1.5 last points, and then I want to give you a sneak peek of 20 million in revenue. I've written about this in the past, but I really want you to internalize it. When you cross into this 1 to 10 zone, especially around 1, 2, 3 million in revenue, you're still going to think you're a startup. It's not going to feel like you're not going to have the 2 executive assistants in the corner office. You're probably still going to be in the same crappy office you were in before. It ain't going to feel a lot different, except you'll start to see repeatability in the revenue. That's what's different. One thing we don't realize and we don't guard enough is our mini brand. If you have 100 customers, especially if you have a high customer satisfaction, high NPS, you have a mini brand. Okay, almost no one in this room or almost no one within 10 miles of Silicon Valley will have heard of your product. But in your little tiny niche, like this little type of expense management for gyms that are on the 3rd floor in mid-market, mid-peninsula environments, those people will have heard of you. I guarantee it. And you won't know it because you'll be sitting here in the Westfield co-working space typing all day and you won't know because you need to get out of the office more. But I guarantee you, after $1.2 million in revenue, you will have a mini brand, okay? You will. So take it seriously. Stop being cutesy. And most importantly, start acting like a 10 or 20 million CEO. Have a customer conference, right? Go meet with them. Change your modus operandi. Be more professional. And this impacts you at every level, but don't underestimate the power of your brand. Nurture this thing, because when you get to about 10 million, it's going to explode on you. If you do it right, like the rainforest example, the revenue is just going to keep growing. And if you don't take it seriously, if you're too focused on just closing the next deal or the next release and you don't take this brand seriously, at least in SaaS, you're doing yourself a disservice. And remember this one last point, because we forget it. I don't know about other spaces, but in SaaS, customers that buy startup products do not buy a product. They buy a 3 to 10 year journey, okay? Someone finds you on Google, and you know what? Your product, even at $1 million or $2 million, is terrible. It's feature poor, it's buggy, it's insecure, it has so many issues. Why do they buy your product? Well, something is 10 times better than what's out there today, and they're having confidence that you as founders will deliver something over the coming years that will get better. Yes, right? It only works on iOS. My entire workforce uses Android. I believe you, it's coming, okay? Yes, you are a sales product and you don't even know what a Salesforce integration is, but I believe you will build it, okay? They trust you, they believe in you, and part of this is building this brand. Be this company that isn't just this little point solution today, but take these customers on a 3 to 10 year journey and protect that and deliver it and do monthly and quarterly product updates and do whatever 10 million plus companies with big brands do because your customers believe that's you.
Let me take a moment to thank Squarespace for, first of all, making amazing software. I was just working on one of the new projects I'm working on. You may have heard of television show. And we had to make a website, and I just went on to Google Domains, and I was buying a domain over at Google Domains, and boom, you could just, when you're setting up your Gmail, fire up and launch Squarespace. I guess they're partners now. And I was able to fire up a gorgeous website in literally minutes, and it looked like we spent $25,000 making it. It looks professional, it's intuitive and easy to use, no coding is required, and they use state-of-the-art tech. It's super secure, it's super stable, and it's trusted by millions, some of the most respected brands in the world. We, in fact, use it for all of our events and conferences, and you can start your free trial today. No credit card is required. And you'll get a free domain name if you sign up for a year. I'm an idiot. I did it wrong. I signed up at the wrong domain place. I didn't know that I would get a free domain. I got to go back and do that next time. If you decide to sign up for Squarespace, if you do decide that you're going to sign up for Squarespace, which I'm sure you will, just use the promo code TWIST and you'll get 10% off your first purchase. It is an amazing, amazing product. It's super easy to use, and they keep adding features to it, which is one of the great things about the software as a service movement. They keep getting more people loyal to the product. They keep being able to hire more product managers, developers, and researchers to figure out what to make next. And boom, they make amazing product, and they keep the price the same. So things are getting better and better over there at Squarespace. I love the product. Go ahead and follow at Squarespace.
Here's the thing that people also don't get between 1 and 10 million. I wrote this post early in SaaStr called "The Cavalry is Coming." Like how between 1 and 10 is the hardest time, because especially as you hit the middle, 4 and 5, you have too many customers with too many demands. It's just too hard. You'll be overwhelmed as founders. But here's the thing that will happen. If you hire those great VPs before this 4 to 5 million mark, your job will be 20 times easier. It'll be not 2 times, 20 times. Why? Because great VPs build great teams. And great teams have no turnover. And great teams want to work together. And great teams energize the company. And as you go from 1 to 10, you're moving from great individuals and great ICs and great stretch somethings to team leaders. And so your time will be so much better in here if you hire great leaders. Put differently, by 4 to 5 million in revenue, you should be VP of nothing. Nothing. Seriously, think about it this other way. You get an F if you are VP of anything at 4 to 5 million in revenue. You cannot hire 20 reps. You cannot hire an entire demand gen marketing team. You cannot put on an event like this yourself. You cannot do it. So be VP of nothing. And if those VPs are good, They will hire great people, and your company, as you get to the next stage, will be wonderful. It will be wonderful. The most fun time for us as founders, in my experience, is this when you get to the end of this, it's 8 to 10 million, because you have this management team that's great, and you love your VPs, and you really love them, and they bring in people you'll love. And you'll have your first company retreat with 50 or 100, and it'll be one of the funnest things you ever do, because the great VPs will have recruited great teams. So that's mostly what I want to hit, but with the last couple minutes, I want to give you a sneak peek of the future, because once you figure all of this out, then it's all going to change again. But that's okay. Don't worry about it. But I want to give you a sneak peek of a few things that change, because two things I find happen with SaaS companies, the great ones. Two things happen. One is they slow down at 4 to 5, this crazy growth rate. It's because of the VPs, again. And the other thing happens, and then there's a second group of SaaS companies that slows down at 20 million. They slow down again. And if you talk to like Series B VCs or Series A or B VCs, they'll all give you this, well, I love your company, but this one stopped growing at 20 million. You're going to hear the story again and again. And when you get a little later than this stage and you start talking, when you start raising those 8-figure checks, they're all going to be wondering, will you stall out at 20 million? And I didn't stall out at 20 million. At first, I hadn't met I have some quirky portfolio companies, but so far, no one's stalled out at 20 million. But it took me a while to figure this out. Some may not get to 20 million. But then I started to meet these companies and analyze them and approach it a little more methodically. And here's what I found: a couple things happen. And really, it's just the last one. But let me give you a sneak peek when they're talking the last point, and then I'll end it. At 20 million, you have a brand. If you have cut corners, if your product is bad at this point, if your NPS is not north of 40 or 50, they will start to flee you to find another one, right? Why is Stuart Butterfield doing what he does? Why is he making Slack one of the most beloved companies in Silicon Valley? It's because he knows he has to do this. He has a precious brand, and he is doing everything he can to deliver against that promise. Folks that aren't customer-centric enough, that don't get on enough jets, that don't stand up on stage, that don't deliver quick enough releases, that are too bug-ridden, that have too many issues, you don't reel that brand, you flush down the toilet, and they all stall out. I'm not going to name names of SaaS companies, but if you look at the ones that have stalled out, they haven't delivered on that brand promise. And this is special. If your brand and NPS are high, again, then you can get from 20 to 100. Again, it's just a matter of time. Here's another thing that screws everybody up. Sales efficiency dips. You raise this huge round, and then all of a sudden, your sales efficiency plummets. You start having directors and senior directors and junior VPs. More importantly, you need to hire an insane number of reps. So I don't have time to go through all of this, but once you're starting feeling really good about your sales efficiency, assume it's halved at this phase. It's halved. And that's one big reason you do need to raise capital. Last point, dominant strategy works. Do not do this at your stage. Do not try to, this means compete in segments where you're non-competitive. Dominant. Do not compete in segments where your product is the worst, right? And no one wants to buy you. When you're number one in the space, actually, you can pour cash into killing these small competitors. Even where you're not competitive, your brand can do that. So don't get confused. And so the corollary is don't sweat competition too much until 20 million and worry more about just your absolute growth rate. And the last point, this is why companies die at 20 million, low NPS. Low NPS, low NPS, low NPS. All the ones die, the second order revenue doesn't happen, the upsells don't happen. They look for a new solution, they flee the crappy Slack clone, okay? Slack's NPS is off the charts, okay? Don't let this happen to you or you will stall out at 20 million. And this is what I learned from the 10 companies I interviewed that stopped growing at 20. So with 52 seconds left, thank you everyone, appreciate all your time.
Welcome, Alex from com.com.
All right, thank you everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you Jason and team for another fantastic event. The subject of my talk is how to get 100,000 users before you launch. Something that I've done a number of times. I'm excited to share some of the learnings that I've had along the way. So a little bit about me before I get going. I'm the founder and co-founder and co-CEO of Calm, which is a popular meditation app that's been very popular actually in the last week, given current affairs. And there's actually something useful to know about Calm and generally relaxation and meditation that is important in the creative process I'm going to be talking about. But aside from Calm, perhaps my best known project was called the $1 Million Homepage, which was about 11 years ago. I was a broke-ass student, really broke, didn't want to be broke, and so thought, okay, how do I make $1 million, like overnight? And actually it turned out that I came up with this harebrained scheme that worked, and in 4 months I'd made $1 million selling 1 million pixels for $1 each. Like, it was absurd, right? And again, some of the things that made this work I'm going to talk about today, and hopefully will help you in your business. So what are some of the ways that you can acquire 100,000 users? You can buy them, which is, it's one option. It's kind of boring. It's expensive. Your investors might not be too happy with you spending, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. You can be famous. You could be Kim Kardashian. You could be Jack Dorsey. You're going to get tons of users before you launch. You could have an immediately viral product. You could have something that is so compelling that people are talking about it even before you've launched. But I'm guessing that that's pretty uncommon. And actually, what I want to talk to you about today is using your imagination, using your creative impulse to think outside the box. So I've actually done this in my last 2 companies. I've creatively acquired 100,000 users for free in less than a week. So I did it with my company that I had in London called PopJam, and most recently with Calm. And basically, in a nutshell, the idea is this: to build something that's more viral than your actual product. To build something that's more viral than your actual product. Now, this sounds kind of strange. Why would you build something else? Why not just focus your attention on your main product? That's where your energy should be. Well, I'm going to say something controversial. I think most of the products we're working on are not immediately going to grab a lot of people's attention. They may be too niche, they may be too simple at first. So building something else can actually gain attention and drive users to your main product. Seth Godin uses this analogy of the purple cow. So if you're driving down a highway and you look into a field and you see a bunch of cows, you wouldn't think of anything of it. But if you saw one that was purple, you would be like, holy shit, there's a purple cow. And it would gain your attention. So I'm going to say that most of us don't have a purple cow initially, right? Our ideas need iteration and evolution. But the technique that I'm talking about today is about making a purple cow, letting your imagination run wild. And then the cow that's really close to it benefits from proximity. So PopJam, this was my company back in 2008. It was a social network for sharing funny, humorous content, memes, videos, that sort of thing. Ultimately, it failed, but the launch story is pretty interesting. We were getting ready to launch, building, coding, designing, and I think it was a Sunday night. I was sitting on the couch with my best buddy, Michael Acton-Smith, and we were watching the news, and we saw the incident about George Bush getting a shoe thrown at his face. And this story was wild. It was all over the press. And we're sitting there thinking, okay, this is kind of interesting. This should be a game. Someone's going to build a game where you throw a shoe at George Bush's head. And I'm thinking, hang on, I'm working on this thing called PopJam that's funny content. This would be a funny game. Let's build this game. So I go into the office on a Monday, and I say to the team, right, guys, we're going to build a game where you throw a shoe at George Bush's face. And we did. In 3 hours, literally in 3 hours, we built this game. And in the game is basically you have 30 seconds to hit George Bush's face as many times as possible. It's very, very simple. I think we just hijacked some really basic Flash game and reskinned it with our own graphics. But we knew that the missing ingredient, the game was not enough. You need a great name. For something to go viral, you have to have something that captures people's attention. And I'm a huge fan of puns. So we came up with this pun. Sock and ore. So now we have the ingredients of something that's potentially viral. And so we launched it, and it did. It went immediately viral. It got tons and tons of press. It was all over the world, in mainstream media, and in 7 days it got 9 million visitors. Now there's no way in the world that PopJam, in its basic form of being this sort of funny meme site, would get 9 million unique visitors in 7 days. But Soccernaut did because we were opportunistic and took advantage of this amazing news story. And so here's how we drove users to PopJam. We actually put an email capture underneath the game and said, we're working on this funny site, like if you like Soccernaut, come and put your email address in and we'll let you know when we're going to launch. And 120,000 people did that, and that seeded PopJam. These were qualified people who loved the idea of PopJam and signed up. So that's the first example. The second example is actually related to my current company, Calm. So we launched a website called Do Nothing for 2 minutes. And we actually launched this way in advance of Calm ever launching. Calm as a company did not exist, so it's a little different to PopJam and Soccernaut. But the idea was very simple. Again, very, very simple. We had this one-page website with a sunset, picture of a sunset. The invitation was to do nothing for 2 minutes. There was a countdown from 2 minutes to 0, but the kicker was if you moved the mouse or keyboard, it said fail, and you had to try again. So this is really a test of, can people actually sit still in this crazy, distracted age that we live in? It was seeded with this one tweet. I just did nothing for 2 minutes, can you? Got 10 retweets, and those retweets went on and got many more. It got a ton of press, again went viral, and in 10 days got 2 million unique visitors. And so this is another example of just thinking a little bit outside the box and creating something separate from the main product that drove traffic to ultimately to Calm. But again, the difference was that Calm didn't really exist at that point. It was an idea sort of in our minds, but we hadn't determined to actually start a company around it. And Do Nothing for 2 minutes, it was just done for fun, but it kind of gave myself and Michael confidence that, there's this sentiment that exists in the market that we're really distracted and people can't even sit still for 2 minutes. And so people talk about minimum viable products. In some ways, Do Nothing for 2 minutes was a minimum viral product. We captured 100,000 emails for Calm, and it was really like a minimum viral product that didn't test product market fit, but it tested almost sentiment market fit, and that gave us the impetus to start Calm, and we had those 100,000 emails. There's one more example I want to give you of using this technique of building something else outside of your normal product, and that's called Checky. This is actually a couple of years into Calm's existence. We had what we call a marketing hackathon, where we thought, okay, we're going to take some time out from regular development work and build something and try and get users for Calm without spending a ton of money or something that could break out. So the idea was very simple. Again, kind of absurd. It was the question was, how many times a day do I check my phone? It's a question that could be interesting to a lot of people. And there's a certain irony in building an app and checking an app to tell you to check your phone or tell you how many times you checked your phone. And we knew it was slightly silly, but it was also related to Calm. Again, it tapped into this idea that we're distracted, that we check our phones too much, and maybe people who download Checky might benefit from Calm. Again, it went viral as soon as we launched it, got tons of press, people talked about it, but the icing on the cake, which was totally out of the blue, as a total surprise, was Stephen Colbert at the top of the Colbert Report talking about Checky for 3 minutes, and he found it hilarious that there was this app that you had to check to tell me how many times you check your phone. But the cool thing was, we had an ad at the bottom of Checky. So of the 650,000 downloads we got for it, we got 50,000 downloads for Calm. And again, this is something that took 1 day to build, where the emphasis was on sort of using our imagination. And it was basically 50,000 free users, which could cost you $50,000, $100,000 if you had to pay for it. So those are a few examples. Hopefully this is interesting to you. I'm going to dive into how you can do this in your own business. What are the key ingredients, which you may have picked up on some of them so far. I won't mention too much the failed experiments. There are many, many of them. This is very much a hit or miss kind of strategy. It's very high reward, but it's very, it's potentially a low probability of success. Some teams will have a higher probability of success with this, but I would say that, because it's low cost, it's worth trying. So number one, you want to tap into the zeitgeist. That means absorbing as much as you can. So current affairs and news is one thing. Looking at Google Trends is another. It's very, very interesting to see what people are searching and increasing over time. You can look at memes. You can see what people are sharing on 9gag and knowyourmeme.com. You can look at top-selling books. What are people writing about? What is current in people's minds? But more than this, the goal is to be opportunistic. So with Sock and All, it was very opportunistic. We had this very tight window of opportunity where this new story led itself very well to a Flash game. And actually, if you look in the App Store now, there's hundreds and hundreds of games just around like Donald Trump. So like, if you're early with that, you probably got quite a bit of attention. And potentially, if you had something relevant, you could drive users to something like that. Number 2 is generating ideas. So this is really a key thing. You want to gather the inputs. You want to absorb the zeitgeist. You then want to actually rest and wait. You want to give time for your subconscious to kind of mull things over, if you have the time. You don't want to wait too long. Sometimes it's very time sensitive. Other times you have a bit more time. This is where the meditation comes in. So there's this great app called Calm you can download and it helps you meditate. And like this is important because when you're in a very relaxed state of mind, you're more likely to have ideas come up, bubble up. So all my best ideas have come when I've been in a very relaxed state of mind. And you can meditate, you can do breathing techniques. And then actually when you come to the generating of ideas, you want to brainstorm / probe. And what probe means is asking yourself questions, asking yourself outlandish questions, getting your brain to start operating on a different level. So I'll give you an example. With the $1 Million homepage, the idea really came about because I started brainstorming on a piece of paper and I wrote down the question, how could I become a millionaire? Actually in 2 weeks. It was quite audacious. And now to the rational brain, that's absurd, right? Like you go from 0 to a millionaire in 2 weeks, it's not going to happen. But your subconscious mind doesn't really give a shit. It's interested in the question and it will just start giving you answers. And if you're relaxed, you will go with it. So the more outlandish the questions you can ask yourself, the better. With Do Nothing for 2 minutes, the process was, what would the simplest website in the world be? It would be a website that does nothing. Okay, let's build a website that invites people to do nothing. Okay, let's invite people to do nothing for 2 minutes. Like that was the process. So starting with questions and probing your subconscious is a valid technique. So then execution, if it takes a day or two to build, it's too complex. You want to be investing a short space of time here. A great name really helps because you're trying to convince people to pay attention to what you're doing. So puns and descriptive names work best. A simple design is absolutely crucial. You want to be able to show what you're creating in one page, in one screen. People have to get it instantly. Can you convey it in a tweet? Kind of related to simple design, but the $1 Million homepage, Twitter didn't exist. With Sock and All, the question or the tweet was, I just threw a shoe at George Bush's face like 30 times in 30 seconds. With Do Nothing for 2 minutes, it was, can you do nothing for 2 minutes? And with checky, it was, I checked my phone 73 times. How about you? So you can implement this strategy by doing what I call a marketing hackathon. So it's like 24 to 48 hours. You divide your company into teams. One team is fine, of course. But if you have multiple teams, it increases the odds of a success because this is kind of like a low probability but high payoff kind of approach. But it's a lot of fun. And instead of like judging, you can actually say the winner is the most users acquired to your core product, which kind of makes it really exciting. So I just want to leave you with like one thought. Use your imagination is great advice if you take it seriously. Think outside the box. That's me. Follow me on Twitter. I'm Chewy. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm sure some people have questions. If you have a question, come on up and ask a question. One quick note, no periscoping from the audience or live streaming. I know that's crazy, but... if you were looking at a company, that's done incredibly well, let's say Airbnb in recent history, or say Uber before they launched, two of the bigger companies. We'll leave out Palantir for now. How would you approach some viral, growth thing? I'm putting you on the spot here, but just like, let's do the process, you and I right now. Okay, so we have Airbnb, sleep on somebody's couch. What would the process be right now? Well, that's really putting me on the spot, Jason. Yes. Let's do it. Let's do this. Okay, let's do it.
Open
our consciousness here.
So Airbnb. So I'm immediately thinking of another company, Couchsurfing. Right. The name Couchsurfing it lends itself better to like potentially more outrageous, like viral things, right?
Sure. So or crashing on a stranger's bed.
Crashing on a stranger's sofa.
Crashing.
So maybe you could do something like, I don't know, you put a webcam on a couch and you invite anyone who wants to stay at your place, they have to be broadcast live. They stay, but they pay by being broadcast live, right? And that's kind of interesting. Like a window to the world. Like, okay, who's staying this week? And you get these crazy characters over time. It could be kind of interesting.
I like it. Well done. Okay, questions. Here we go. I mean, it's kind of interesting. When we met and you were on the podcast, I was just like, God, the fact that you got com.com, I was like fascinated that you got a 4-letter domain name because that shows some level of hustle. But I was also fascinated by how your brain works. And it's like, I absolutely have to invest in com.com, but really I more have to invest in Alex.
Right.
Let people know exactly how, because people, when I invested in the company, and you were one of the first angel syndicates, and I think we raised maybe $400,000 or something.
Right.
People were writing that I would lose that money, and it was a horrible investment.
Yeah.
At the time, how much revenue did you have when I invested? And then what is the company looking like now? Just broad strokes.
Yeah, when you invested, we probably had 100,000 a year or something, or maybe less. Yeah. Now we're doing like many, many millions of dollars. So you made a good investment, Jason.
Right, but the point is, you saw something over the edge with meditation even.
Right.
How did you know meditation would become mainstream? What did you see 5 years ago when you started this adventure?
In this situation, I was just lucky because I'd been meditating for a long time. So I knew the benefits of meditation and had been thinking about this idea with my co-founder Michael for a long time. But I think we picked the moment right. I think timing is important. There are a lot of good ideas that you've got to get the timing right. And we're seeing this today with like the on-demand economy and like Postmates and stuff. Those ideas were tried like in 2099, but they only work now because of the technology and the environment.
Mobile phones.
Mobile phones, right.
And so in a way, subscription services and the App Store allowing in-app purchases, without that, it would have been very hard to make com work.
Totally. And actually it's funny because prior to the $1 Million homepage, I was working on a website that was actually kind of like Calm now, but shelved it because it didn't feel right. Like the environment was wrong. Like people were not exposed or like not ready for this. So.
Okay, a concise question.
Can you talk about conversion rates through to active customers, and how closely does the viral product have to be to the end product?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say that actually the conversion rate is generally pretty low, right? Because people are coming for this one thing, and you're reaching potentially a very mainstream audience. So that's why you kind of need scale. Like it's almost like you need to get millions of users to then capture a very small portion of it in order for it to be successful. So that's again another reason why you should be aiming for like the most outlandish, crazy ideas that could appeal to the most people possible. And I would say like in order to get that conversion rate up as high as possible, and for those users to be valuable to your company, the closer the viral idea is to your core product, the better. Like with Checky, the customers we gained from Checky were really valuable customers because they were like already in the mindset of like, oh, I feel distracted. I'm trying to find out how distracted I am. Oh, then Calm offers some ways of helping you be mindful. So the closer you can get it, the better. And sometimes it can just be about luck. Like if your product is in a market that is broad enough, then maybe you can create something that is really viral. So it's kind of a balance.
Let's take one more question. Allison will come up and we'll take one more question.
Hi. The examples you
Okay. You talk. I hold.
the examples you gave, I think, are more about B2C type of products. Can you comment a little bit whether these approaches would work for B2B or how they can be adapted for B2B products?
That's a great question. You know what? I think it's probably true that this is very much a B2C thing. I'm not really sure that the enterprise would work.
Let's find out. Do it for right now. Put you on the spot again. You have 30 seconds. Do it for Slack.
Okay. Well, Slack doesn't need my help, man.
No, I know, but Slack is just coming out. It's a new product. Everybody was using Yammer and
Okay,
email.
Slack. I would create a one-page website, and every company in the world gets to chat on one channel. I don't know, like something crazy, like
right.
Or like you get to chat with the entire team of a company. So maybe it's Slack as they're developing the product. They develop this site where you can actually just chat to the whole Slack team. I don't know. That's not very good.
Whoa, no. That last one is a new company. If you did a site that said talk2.com /Microsoft/Slack,
right.
And in order to be in the chat room, you had to have a Microsoft email address or an IBM email address, but then you could ask questions, and like one person every 15 minutes could ask a question to them.
Right.
It would be like an open forum with anybody who works at the company but anonymous. I mean, that is its own company. This is how brilliant you are.
I gotta go. This is a great idea.
No, I'm serious. How many people would like to try that idea? Raise your hand if you want to talk to somebody randomly at a company. Like, think about that. It's sort of like Glassdoor, but an anonymous version of Glassdoor, so you can anonymously know you're talking to people at the company.
Right.
Brilliant, kid. Dude, get off stage, get a domain name, and let's put that. Let's get an AngelList syndicate going and build that. All right, let's hear it for Alex, whose brain works differently.
Our iTunes review of the week is from Green Panther 12. This Week in Startups is quite simply the most informative, entertaining podcast that offers remarkable insights in startups and the world at large.